So welcome, Jenna.
Thank you, Patty. Yeah, so I'm our last presenter for the weekend, and I will make it a little shorter. I'm going to be talking about the rockfish conservation work that the Conservancy has been doing over the past few years, give you an idea of what we've been up to and where we want to go in the next couple of years. So, all exciting things. So I'll show you a bit of the pieces that brought us where we are today, and yeah.
Can I interject? I can't resist it. Anybody know what rockfish is? This is a bit of a trick question. Canary.
It's one of the 46 species.
Canary, excellent. Okay.
You get a free map.
Talk about it. It has the white band, and it's excellent. Very good.
Yeah, and I'm going to then give you some details about the current project, where we're going, and how you can get involved, of course, which flows into our workshop. So, as we've been talking about a bit, Galiano and the other southern Gulf Islands are located between two pretty large population centers, Victoria and Vancouver, and we receive many visitors each year for recreational fishing. Alongside this, these waters are host to diverse ecological communities, and these communities are very important to protect for a variety of reasons. And I won't get into those details, we've already talked about that this weekend. So combining the significant human pressure and the incredible ecological values in this area, it means that the southern Gulf Islands make sense as a top priority for conservation protection. Here we are, smack dab in the middle. So about 5 years ago, the Galiano Conservancy started the Freedom to Swim project, which I am happy to say Leah and Travis are both yay. So we have some guest stars here that were involved in the Freedom to Swim project. And they began a series of dive surveys to get an idea of the rockfish populations in the RCAs around Galiano. This was a success, but unfortunately with funding we couldn't continue the dive surveys in the coming years. So their surveys found that among other things, the habitat protected within some RCAs, particularly the Trincomalee RCA, was not actually ideal for rockfish. So some interesting food for thought there that we can talk about more. Then there's Leah Travis, and this was funded by MEC. So the current project, we received Habitat Stewardship funding for in 2014, and we began a multi-year project in partnership with the Valdez Island Conservancy. So this project came about kind of in an interesting way. We received a call from Lynn Yamanaka in the fall of 2014 saying that DFO had money for marine conservation work, and they had received some interest from the Galiano Conservancy in previous years, which would have been Leah and Travis, and also from a few of the other Gulf Island conservancies wanting to do work on rockfish but not having the funds. So then a couple of years go by, they have the funds, and they reached out to us, which was wonderful. So we applied for that funding in a rush, and we got it. So by the end of this month, we'll be finishing that project cycle. And we've structured that project around two key areas: scientific research and community education and outreach. So this project has been in partnership with the Valdez Island Conservancy and UVic Environmental Studies. So I'll tell you more about the components now. So I'm going from the most basic to the most complicated here. So for our outreach materials, we had an Island Tides insert last May that was basically starting to get the community up to speed on what RCAs are, where are they in this region, and some of the reasons for protecting these species. So this was a collaborative effort. We have research highlights of Darian's work, for instance, and some of the work being done at DFO and the Galiano Conservancy. We also did some outreach posters. These were put up throughout the region, and all these materials, I would just say, are available digitally as well and on that table, so please help yourselves. The posters were meant to raise local and regional awareness about RCAs and the importance of protecting rockfish, and to just get people thinking about the potential consequences. So a little tongue-in-cheek on the left, help your kid catch a real fish. You don't want your future generations to only be able to see a rockfish on an iPad. So kind of a poke at too much technology, get kids outside, but also it's a shared common pool resource and it's there for everyone. And that's Dylan, Keith Erickson's son, for those who know Keith. He was our child star. And since it was federally funded, we have French, which I must say haven't been used as much as the English in this area. But if anyone is keen and can translate the French, you get a free muffin. There you go. So we also had the opportunity through this project to showcase the incredible mapping capabilities at the Conservancy, which I'm just thrilled about. Keith is amazing with GIS and making maps. Keith does contract work for around the region. So we got him to make lots of pretty RCA maps for us. This is with our regional satellite overlay and one that's easier to print for 8.5 by 11. So these we've also put up regionally. And they went recently, February, I sent a bunch out. They went to the Vancouver Boat Show. So they're getting out there in different avenues. We also did maps that were more local. We have a Galiano focused map that also shows the Galiano protected areas. We are right here, the Learning Center, and it's showing trails, protected areas, water access points, and surrounding RCAs.
Jenna, where's the show's dock on that?
The green dot.
Yeah. Okay. It's up there. I can just use Lily's arm. Yeah.
Just don't stand on a chair, they're not safe.
Just a sec.
So it's just outside
This
there.
is highly
It's
effective.
just inside the RCA.
Right
Okay.
There you go. Thank
You shake it.
you. Yeah.
I still have it if you need one.
Thank you. So we also have a local map of Valdez. This project was focused around Galiano and Valdez, so we focused in on these two islands, and then for the other islands, they're included in the more regional maps. So this is an example of an insert map that was put on our signs that I will show you in a minute. For each location that the signs were put up, there was an insert on the sign showing you are here, this is the location, and relative to the RCA. Not all of the signs were put up in locations that were directly at or inside of an RCA, but most of them were either inside or near.
Can I ask a question, Jenna? Do those signs have specific information about what the RCA means?
You mean the permitted and non-permitted uses? Yeah.
It does,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. So this is the one for Kendrick Island dock off of Valdez. So for our signs, we had two versions of the signs that we produced last year. This was a strictly text sign that Valdez Island Conservancy wanted because they don't have a large population on Valdez, and most of their fishers are coming but not necessarily going through a dock or marina. So they wanted a sign that they could attach to a tree and have facing out to the water so that people fishing close to shore can read that and acknowledge.
How big is that sign physically?
It's 2 by 3 feet.
2 by 3 feet? Yeah.
And we're going to see one at Spanish Hills this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we were out, just a little aside, we were out on it was actually a CPAWS expedition. We had Bill Henwood from Parks, and we went over, and there was one of the signs on one of the islands.
Way back.
Yeah, this is way back, and Andy was on that tour. And Bill's looking at this sign on shore on this island. You couldn't tell. It was like looking at a sign under a microscope.
Yeah.
And he goes, geez, I think we're going to have to make those signs a bit bigger. So I just wondered how big those
Yeah,
signs
we
are.
tried to make the text as big as possible while maintaining French and English, which left us here. And you do have to be fairly close to shore to read it.
Yeah.
The hope is that people will see something. Some of these are within a big triangle, so it does look like you need to acknowledge
Official,
this. So the hope is that people will acknowledge it and maybe come closer to it, but it's definitely not, the font could be bigger.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Simple, it's sweet. Makes
So you
sense.
don't have one of this particular sign, Spanish Hills, because Spanish Hills itself is not in the conservation area, but you've got the fish sign.
Yes. Yeah, so these signs were put up on Valdez within the boundaries of RCA's. And then the other sign I'll show you now were put up at water access points, boat launch, marina, dock, that kind of thing. So this is the one for Spanish Hills that we'll be going to shortly. It's not inside an RCA, but it shows the relevant RCAs if you're leaving from that dock. So this sign is what you would see around Galiano. All of the spots we put up on Galiano, 6 total, 4 for Valdez. They all look like this because on Galiano there are more docks and people were leaving from marinas and docks mainly. So you have the examples of the different fish that you're likely to find in the RCAs in this area, and then in both French and English you have your permitted activities and the why are they at risk section, which is addressing Jen's concern of why you should care. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a voter, so I just want to know if you were about to go out and vote and you saw the sign and you wanted to know where those RCAs were. And we were talking about these apps and stuff. Is there actually a way right now that you're like, oh, I can take that information somehow with me?
We want to have the localized maps also available with the signs, but funding has been an issue to get the.
But I mean, like,
What's the
you're
word?
on, like,
Yeah.
currently, is there a way when you're on the water to know, like, is there like longitude, latitude, like, is there anything so you're like, I know where I
The
am?
coordinates are available on DFO's website, but it's self-serve. You need to take the initiative to put that on your own GPS unit.
Okay.
And we, as it's been discussed through Darian's talk, we are trying to get that information more accessible.
So you'd be landmarking this if you were out on the water, you could
Yeah.
figure out that.
Yeah,
There is a little booklet that you can get
yeah,
that has all that.
Right.
yeah.
I'm just thinking for the average person that's like, just on Galiano for a visit, they're heading out in their boat and they see the sign, what would they?
Yeah. Well, we're hoping to get our maps out so that they're permanently stocked at the different launches and marinas, which will give them the map, but then the next step is to have a link on the map so that they can go to a website or download an app.
Is
Yeah.
there ever,
Any floating signs?
No, that was our first thought about the signs, to have a marker buoy out on the water so that people can see, regardless of paper or GPS or anything, okay, this is a corner of a protected area. But the different ownerships of both the ocean floor, the water itself, it was just a nightmare. And we spoke to Lynn about that, and she said right away, it's not worth your time to even try and do that.
Practicalities.
Yeah, it's just huge.
Oh,
So
mussels will pull a buoy down in no time flat.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that.
I just wanted to confirm, I remember there was talk yesterday in a workshop group, is there like a specific logo, like triangle sideways that says on, like if you were to post a sign on shore, it's like this is the boundary of an RCA?
For commercial
I'm not sure.
fishing, isn't it, am I not right, it's commercial fishing is a triangle of
Yeah.
closures.
Yeah.
That was the idea of the triangle, if you're
Yeah.
aware of that, you can catch some people, it obviously wouldn't catch you.
I just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, I have
I
a
just-
photo coming up. I'm assuming that's what Valdez was going for. They put this sign up around a wooden triangle. So this is just an example of one of these signs up at the BC Parks boat launch at Montague Harbor here in Galiano. I must say it puts the other signs to shame. It's very
What a beautiful
Looks
sign that
good.
is.
Yeah, had to move everything around to make space for our giant 2x3 foot sign. Yeah, so we're getting them out there, and we did receive additional funds for more signs this year, which is awesome. And so by the end of March, 20 more signs will be ordered, and that Thetis, what Andy was talking about, so that is one of the signs that we're hoping to get up there. And those are intended for other golf islands.
Now, we have a lunch.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you're gonna have to compete with the other islands.
Would go a long way.
Yeah.
You talking to Simries at all? Because
Yeah.
Simries would probably help
Yeah.
you out with that.
Mhm,
They're
definitely.
pretty resourceful over there.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
talking to Larry.
Good. Oh yeah, Larry's the guy. Yeah.
Patty?
You might be talking about this, but I'm curious how many different places you put signs, or will by the end of this new push.
So up to this point in our first round of signs, we had funds for 10 in total, and 4 went to Valdez and 6 were on Galiano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So where's the next push going?
Well, the next push is for the other southern Gulf Islands, so within that range. And I'm trying to make it fairly equal to the islands, but also taking into account the human pressure in different areas. So for the islands with more people, having a few more signs would be better. And it's also really based on interest and getting the necessary authorities on side. So if people just aren't interested, then it obviously won't be going to their marina. So I'm talking to both public and private marinas, boat ramps, docks, and I don't think there'll be any just on trees, like it was on Valdez this time.
Maybe Islands Trust could be involved here. We have
Yeah.
Islands Trust. A big political problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the response that you're getting?
Really good. Yeah, so Ben Maberly, who joined us yesterday, for anyone who met Ben, he's the chair of the Harbors Commission right now for the CRD, and he's been really supportive to get these signs up. And that was great because he was able to connect me to the representatives from the different islands. So the CRD docs look good, and I'm waiting to hear back from Parks Canada to see if we can get them at the National Park on Saturna. So
We did some, Bowen Island, I consulted with them on it, put some signage up, and they actually put a phone number on of somebody locally that who could be called if you see a poacher. And I'd strongly encourage with this big sign, you put if you see a poacher, call kind of thing. And they've had some really good success with that. They linked it up to the RCMP because on the islands, there's no DFO guy going around. And they had an agreement that, if he got a call, he would go out and he would escort people. And essentially, he doesn't charge them, but he escorts them off island. But this is probably something, does that have the report line number on it?
So this sign has the information to report to DFO right here.
Like a
How
block
big
watch
was it?
system.
You can see it Spanish Hills. I can't remember the font size now, but it's easy to read. We made sure that it was accessible.
We'll see one today at the dock.
Yeah. We can take a photo with it with the fish hat. Yeah, that's a really good idea though, Roy.
It
have
was.
to speak to the different authorities on
It works, and if you get and here's something else we found out when we started approaching, Parks Canada has the ability to deputize anyone. So if you could figure out who those right people, because you can't have just anybody enforcing this. You have to have people who know how to do this properly. You can't have altercations, that sort of thing. So if you get your local RCMP on board, in the case of West Vancouver, I've been talking to them about bylaw officers, because they have municipal bylaw officers. I think that a movement, you're going totally in the right direction with your signage. I think that's a brilliant idea. It's really, really good for that matter. I might want to borrow that and cookie cutter it over on our side of the pond, because House Sound is like terribly poached out.
Yeah, so this is jumping a bit ahead, but on that note, we've applied for HSP funding again, and we want to get signs in that round for Vancouver Island and mainland BC.
Good.
So we're kind of starting to ripple out, but
Good.
I thought it would be pragmatic to just start with this area of islands for now,
Well, and
since
see
you
how
can
it
put signs
goes, and
anywhere.
you try it.
Yeah. So this is another example of a sign up at Retreat Cove on Galiano. So this one doesn't have as much traffic for fishers going to this dock, but it's a really interesting area for rockfish. So.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you, Tom. But have you had any evidence of people writing graffiti on it or scratching?
No.
They had vandalism.
No, and I wasn't sure if we would have that or not. That said, they are screwed in with a washer and they're really in there to make sure that they're not easy to take off. So that did cross our minds, well, someone might just take the sign.
It's also real official.
Because they're pretty, yeah.
Well, that doesn't always mean much.
But no, I mean, I haven't checked on all of them recently.
And they've
but,
only been up for,
they started going up this fall,
okay.
so
they're
October. Yeah. Yeah, we were hoping to have them up for the previous fishing season, but the timing didn't work out. But for this coming round of signs, I'll have them ordered by the end of March, so hopefully we can get them up before the heaviest fishing season starts.
Did you get a lot of graffiti on your island? Andy?
Yeah, does Thetis have graffiti problem?
And these towns.
I can only draw fish.
Okay, so this is what we were referring to, the triangle no fishing, and that's on Valdez. And they also had one of the regular signs for the Kendrick Island Marina, and they had another sign just text that was on their dock there.
Excellent.
So we have a few
Great.
options that are working with what each community needs and the kind of traffic that they're seeing.
One more question, how much are those signs each? Just out of curiosity.
A few $100s. I'd have to check my notes, but in total, I'd say around $300, $200 to $300, and that's with Chris Edley in Victoria. Yeah. So for the camera surveys, Darian gave you a lovely description of these, so I will skip that. So last summer, Alana came out as a summer student, which was made possible through the NSERC USRA support through Natalie Band. So thank you, Natalie. So we had Alana as a research assistant last summer to help with the Rockfish project, and she put up 6 cameras around Galiano looking over the RCAs. And this was intended solely for research to get more of an idea of the fishing pressure in the RCAs off of Galiano. And it's really interesting to have this because the above water information really complements the underwater survey data from below the surface and the in-person questionnaires. So Alana also went and met with fishermen and the public at water access points on Galiano last summer to get an idea of their knowledge and to follow up on what Darian was learning in summer 2014. So overall, through these different methods, we're trying to get a clearer picture of the conservation challenges and situation around Galiano for rockfish by coming to these questions from multiple angles and using different methods. And then also to see which methods work best. So these are the questionnaires, a shot of Darian in action, that Alana was continuing last summer. So what was really great after that was a report that Alana produced after her summer on Galiano that was evaluating the effectiveness and the public interest in the Galiano Conservancy's outreach efforts. So it's great to have a grant and then you go out and you speak to people, you make some posters in French and English and signs, and you think, oh, we did a great job. But it's very important to evaluate, even if it's a little nerve-wracking, the effectiveness of your work, because otherwise what is the point, and we should be putting our resources somewhere else. So Alana's report found that we're basically on the right track, which is great. And our outreach efforts were guided by the findings of Darian's research the year before. So we're trying to fit ourselves within these different findings and move forward kind of as a cohesive unit, going in the right direction. So it's good. So rockfish surveys. Oh, should we do some ID, Andy? So this past fall, 2015, for Lily's master's research, Darian and Lily went out for 2 months and surveyed around Galiano and the other Gulf Islands. And this provided us with a wealth of information about how the populations are doing, and it was a really nice follow-up from the Freedom to Swim dives that Travis and Leah were doing. So our plan is to continue these surveys for the next 3 years, funding confirmed. Assuming that we get funding, then we will do that. And we're also hoping to evolve our approach to the surveys to come to some semi-permanent dive sites that are a little bit less resource intensive so that the Conservancy can manage them more sustainably over the long term. So we had a grant this time that allowed us to do that big push this fall, but into the future we need to be more pragmatic with our resources and not assume we will always be getting that input of money to monitor. So each approach for researching RCAs and for education and outreach around rockfish conservation may have its clear advantages and drawbacks, which is why, in my opinion, they're much more valuable when they're combined. The work the GCA and its partners have been doing in recent years has been structured around these multiple approaches. I hope that during the next workshop session, we can discuss in our groups the ideas you all have about different approaches to these complex challenges. And that's a big part of why we've gathered you all here today and for this weekend, to hear from you and learn from you. So I thank you again for coming, and yeah, this is what we've been up to, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can move forward and ways you think that they can be improved or adjusted or collaborated on or anything like that. So looking ahead, Roy kind of prompted this earlier, but we have applied for an additional grant with UVic and DIC, Valdez Island Conservancy. So based on Alana's report and just our lessons learned over the last few years, we're going to be building upon our previous components of education and outreach and adjusting them to improve based on your input today, possibly too. We're also including several new project components, which are really exciting. I won't get into too much detail, but we have touched on them already today. Getting RCAs on Google Maps to satisfy the need for smartphone information without actually making an app. Lily looked into this, and it was incredibly expensive to actually make an app, and the tech challenges of updating it all the time led us to think, well, we'll update our website and we'll see what we can work around with Google. We'll also be integrating data analysis for the trail camera work into undergraduate courses at UVic, which is John Volpe, which will be a double win because we're both going to be saving research capacity and offering a really exciting opportunity to students to be involved in on-the-ground conservation science in their region, identifying boaters fishing or not fishing in RCAs. So yeah, those are some exciting things moving forward.
Where is that research? Is it accessible? Is it accessible on our website, or where?
Alana's?
People find it? Just research that you said John will be working on, or papers that are.
Well, John will be running the course. That it'll be an assignment for students in the course. Yeah, so that's happening this fall in the coming year.